There were some shocking stats on the number of new Canadians who plan to leave the country. Up to 30% in a recent survey say that it is a distinct possibility within 2 years. That compares with the typical rate of exit of 10 to 20% over 10 years. It's not hard to imagine why newcomers would head out now. High housing costs, problems finding work that matches their credentials, just to name two of them. So what should Canada be doing to reverse this trend? Daniel Berhnard is CEO of the Institute for Canadian Citizenship. Thanks for being with us, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
So there is a certain amount of churn. I know from StatsCan data, it happens, people come and then they resettle elsewhere. It feels higher, and we hear from new Canadians that there are all kinds of issues. Affordability is obviously one of the biggest ones. Is this issue getting the attention it needs to get so that this doesn't become a problem for us?
Well, I think that immigrants live in society with everyone else. This is a problem, this is a phenomenon, rather, that sometimes we forget. Affordability is a problem for everybody, including people who are trying to start a new life here. I think that one of the things that we can do as a country is to start remembering that newcomers are not, for example, just consumers of existing housing. In fact, if you live like I do in Toronto, newcomers built most of the housing and can build more. Who are we bringing in here, and are we setting them up for success? I think a lot of this has to do with labor market fit and the agility that the government has in adjusting its selection requirements based on the needs in the economy. Right now, construction is a big one.
And we are still hearing of newcomers who cannot find work that they're credentialed for. I know every level of government, certainly the provinces where this resides often, have been working hard on that. Are we not working fast enough or effectively enough to make sure that somebody who has a skill and credentials from another country can perform that work here?
Well, the example I use sometimes is Ontario healthcare. We have a need, according to the Nurses Association, of 24,000 nurses. That's barely, 5% of the permanent residents that Canada will bring in this year. So through a combination of strategic migration, our immigration selection, and allowing those who are already here, there are tens of thousands of them, to practice their trade, we can alleviate these shortages overnight. Raises the question, actually, of whether we have shortages in critical sectors like healthcare, or whether our main shortage is actually in ambition and aspiration. The talent is here, and our goal at the Institute for Canadian Citizenship is to help people become citizens, which is not just a legal status, it's a state of mind. Because when these people feel like they're on our team and they're contributing to the fullest extent, Canada can be unstoppable. I think that's the target that we should all be aiming for, harnessing the potential of this vastly, vastly talented demographic within our population.
Absolutely. When you hear that a growing number of younger immigrants are thinking they may have to leave, is that an alarm bell to you?
Absolutely. I think that we are operating still from an outdated perspective of who immigrated. We have this notion of came with $5 in their pocket, few prospects back home, and now put your head down, save up, and maybe things will be all right for you. And if not for you, then for your children. The people who are coming today have much more advanced education, work experience. Many were homeowners, et cetera, in the country of origin. And I think our attitude has not adjusted accordingly. So our settlement services, I think, are still really rooted towards the immigrants of the past, and many of our perceptions in the economy as well. As employers, are we recognizing that the people who are applying are not these, poorly put upon souls looking for a leg up? They actually have something to offer. Different ways of seeing things, different ways of doing things, a competitive edge and advantage for our firm. We need to modernize our conception of who immigrants are to Canada. I think it's something that government, but also the private sector, would do well to take on.
Daniel, it's so good to have you for this. We appreciate your time.
That's my pleasure.
Daniel Berhnard is CEO of the Institute for Canadian Citizenship. Time for the takeaway and the hangover after the party is done. In what's being considered something of a death knell, two of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges are being sued by U.S. regulators. Whether this spells the beginning of the end, at least for now, for trading crypto remains to be seen. But for too many investors, the damage is already done. In a somewhat similar way, cannabis companies have been deflating in value for months as the reality of the business overcomes the hype. Again, some who invested in high-flying stocks based on that hype have paid a serious price. There are similarities between the two industries worth noting. First, brand new sectors attract a lot of excitement, and rightly so. Who doesn't want to be part of the process of designing or selling the very first Model T car? But as is abundantly clear in hindsight, the beginning of an industry is also the most turbulent time, and anyone putting money to work in it does so at the very riskiest possible period. For crypto, there have and will be more cases of outright fraud, where investors were blinded by their own enthusiasm. For cannabis, it may simply be a story of excitement whitewashing some hard truths, that in the end, this was an agricultural business and a retailing story, both of which have unreliable profit margins. So whom do investors blame when they're drawn into these schemes only to find themselves on the losing end of the trade? The answer, unfortunately, is usually themselves. But it is also true that there are plenty of participants in these markets who jolly the innocent along, glossing over facts that might give them pause. It's one reason why any new category that brings hype with it should be treated with caution. Artificial intelligence companies, or those that claim to be AI companies, may be the new flavor of the month and should be treated with the same careful skepticism that, with hindsight, these other flash-in-the-pans deserved. My takeaway? New ideas are often the source of great wealth, but there's some sense in waiting until good old-fashioned business rules can be applied, at least before you put your own savings at risk in something that might go up in smoke. That's Taking Stock for this week. I'm Amanda Lang. Thanks for being with us.